have trouble. Feels too short to me because I like something that might really kind of gives you coverage. And you could take a different shirt and just have a few inches under the so and give it some. She probably did. It inspired my little creativity.
Yeah, I'm not sober, so I would like that.
No, I had a daughter who grew up in that era with, so well that, and one of my things used to be like, crack is bad for you, it's not good for the rest of us either. I saw her butt crack for years. And it was.
Now would be a good time to turn off your phones if you wish, or even if you don't wish, please do. And also, if you want to, I always have trouble explaining this. If you follow us online through Zoom, then you can turn off the volume. Then we get credit for more people watching the service, which social media. What do they call them? Shoot, my mind just went blank. But anyways, algorithms, yes. It counts for us and is an advantage. We are? Okay.
Yep, you're on. I'm watching you.
Good morning. Good morning. To those of you here in our sanctuary, and to those of you viewing us online, my name is Jim Newtown. I'm your worship associate today, and I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Flint, a progressive LGBTQ plus affirming religious community in which people are encouraged to be themselves. Much easier than trying to be somebody else. If you would like more information about our faith tradition or this congregation, please feel free to talk with one of our ministers today or via their contact information found at uuflint.org. Visitors are especially invited to attend coffee hour downstairs today after the service. Announcement about that in a minute. And speak to any of us who would be happy to tell you more about our congregation. You may also sign up for our weekly email newsletter by visiting our website, scanning the QR code on the back of the order of service, back here, or by completing this card in the seat backs here in the sanctuary. Please see the back of the order of service for other details on the following announcements and other important information. Directly after our service at about 11:30, we will hold our congregational meeting. If you are viewing us from home, see our latest e-update for the agenda and the Zoom code. As I understand it, the intention is to do it immediately at the end of the service, and I'm under the impression that we're going to try to keep it brief, but there are several things that we do need to talk about, and at least one issue we do need to vote on. Don't miss our December 22nd service. Each year we do play, that's the Sunday before Christmas. Every year we do a play to spread our beloved faith, increase our holiday spirits, and allow us to be very silly in public. The characters in this year's comedy drama includes Jesus, Santa Claus, and of course, space aliens. Join us, you will believe. On Christmas Eve, we are having our traditional soup social after our 5 o'clock service. If you can, please bring your favorite soup to share, but we will also need crackers and finger food. Please let us know what you are cooking or bringing for everyone by sending an email to the office@uuflint.org, or use the sign-up sheet on the table at the rear of the sanctuary. We also need a few folks who will agree to help with cleanup. We have one more announcement today. It is the second Sunday of the month. and time for a special offering benefiting a nonprofit agency that serves people in need. This special offering program is a big part of this church's social justice work, and that work has defined Unitarian Universalism from its very beginning. Personally, I'm very proud of the fact that each month we encourage our members to also give to another nonprofit organization whose purpose matches our principles. This month, it is to the First Nation Development Institute. This is a nonprofit organization that assists Native American tribes, their communities, and Native nonprofits in economic development by providing technical assistance, training, policy, and the awarding of grants. Public service is another area of focus. As you probably know, we regularly like to remind ourselves that we stand on the traditional lands of the Council of Three Fires and the Anishinaabe people, who were the indigenous inhabitants of Michigan. I'm talking too fast. It's on the back of your order of service, by the way. This offering will allow us to support one specific indigenous-led organization. If you would like more information, I would encourage you to check out the Wikipedia entry for First Nations Development Institute and go directly to their website, firstnations.org. For information on the history of North American Native Americans in Michigan, I would also encourage you to visit the Zebewing Center of Anishinaabe Culture and Lifeways in Mount Pleasant, if you haven't yet. And searching for the proper spelling for that, by the way, I found there are at least 14 other museums and exhibits about Native Americans throughout Michigan. The exhibits and museums are in Michigan. There is an extra basket at the back of the sanctuary and a special online entry for our second Sunday collection for the First Nations Development Institute. Please make any checks out to UCF and put Second Sunday and/or First Nations on the memo line. Okay. Pause in case there are any other major announcements I've missed. Okay. As you nope. Today we light both our chalice and the second candle of our Advent wreath. Last week we lit the first candle of hope. Today we add a second candle for peace. May we all believe that peace is possible and that we can be active in creating it. Please join me in reciting of our covenant. Recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice.
to start, you're perfectly welcome to join us.
Joy is the keynote of the season. It might be a joy of long ago, your first white tennis shoes, or sliding down a hill on a sled. It might be a joy of recognition, a face across a crowded room, holding hands in the woods, or the father you finally understand. It might be a joy of victory, standing in a graduation line, watching the children grow in wisdom and sensitivity, or you losing an inch around the middle. It might be the joy of legend, the birth of a child, a star in the sky, the promise of peace, lifting the hearts in great rejoicing. Joy is the keynote of the season.
Please stand if willing and able.
There's a thing in PowerPoint where if you don't click it, it makes it auto-advance. I did that. Thorpe is not crazy. There's an auto-advance feature. Click. Thorpe is crazy, but in this case, I did that. Okay. After our meditation words today and our time of silence, you're welcome to come up and light a candle of joy or concern. And you can do that at the back as well, if you like. And if you choose to do so, you could also write a joy or concern in one of the books at the back, and we'll make sure that gets into our weekly e-update. But first, our reading and our silence. Put away childish things, yet keep the childlike wonder. Though dreams be rent asunder, our wishes still have wings. Put away childish speech, but not the constant queries that question rooted theories which reason cannot reach. Put away childish thought, yet not imagination, which sparks our inspiration beyond what we are taught. Put away childish whim, yet not delight in playing. Then when the world is dismaying, our days won't seem so grim. Nonetheless, through thick and thin, hang on to the child within. The laughter and the tears, all the livelong years. Put away childish things, but hold to yearning youthful, to grasp the learning truthful, which timeless wisdom brings. Let us enjoy the silence. Amen.
The song the choir is going to sing now is called We Shall Be Known. It's a song for you, our beloved community. The words say we shall be known by the company we keep. by the ones that circle round to tend these fires. And once you catch on to the words, feel free to sing along with us. It's a beautiful song, so, and we're singing it through 3 times, so you might catch on.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires.
We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the web. It is time now. And what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the web. It is time now. And what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. I should know it by now, too. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the web. It is time now. And what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to be in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love.
Thank you, choir. So happy to have you. Jonathan Rogers is the author of 12 books and teaches college-level creative writing, and he also hosts online courses for youth and adults. He specializes in fantasy adventure stories and has extensively researched and written about authors such as Mark Twain, J.R.R. Tolkien, and Flannery O'Connor. In the following essay, Rogers writes about author C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis was funny about weather. For Lewis, it seems, an ability to enjoy all sorts of weather, not just endure it, but enjoy it. He wrote that if you could enjoy or endure it, it suggested that you were the right sort of chap. In Surprised by Joy, he wrote of a favorite schoolmaster, saying, quote, "He communicated a sense of the gusto with which life ought to be taken. I fancy it was with a run with him in the sleet that I first discovered how bad weather is to be treated, as a rough joke, a romp," unquote. To appreciate bad weather, to Lewis's mind, was to be willing to live in, indeed to rejoice in, the fullness of reality. For his friend Hamilton Jenkin, unpleasant weather was part of the atmosphere that was always offering itself to those who would receive it. Lewis wrote, quote, "Jenkins seemed to be able to enjoy everything, even ugliness. I learned from him that we should attempt a total surrender to whatever atmosphere was offering itself at the moment. In a squalid town, to seek out those very places where its squalor rose to grimness and almost grandeur. On a dismal day, to find the most dismal and dripping wood, and on a windy day, to seek the windiest ridge. There was no nostalgic irony about it, only a serious, gleeful determination to rub one's nose in the very quiddity of everything, to rejoice in its being so magnificently what it was," unquote. In Lewis's book, That Hideous Strength, he shared his love of the weather and implied that weather may even be a reason for two people to be married. Here's a bit of dialogue from it. "That's why Camilla and I got married," said Deniston. "We both like weather. Not this or that kind of weather, but just weather. It's a useful taste to have if you live in England." "However did you learn that?" said Jane. "I don't think I should ever learn to like rain or snow." "It's the other way around," said Deniston. "Everyone begins as a child by liking weather. You learn the art of disliking it when you grow up. Haven't you ever noticed that on a snowy day? The grown-ups are all going about with long faces, but look at the children and the dogs. They sure know what snow is made for." "I'm sure I hated wet days as a child," said Jane. "That's because grown-ups kept you indoors," said Camilla. "Any child loves rain if they're allowed to go out and paddle about in it." As we face the Arctic temperatures and below zero wind chills and a few snow or ice days perhaps coming ahead, we may well remember to see it in the eyes of a child or a dog.
I won't grow up. I don't want to go to school just to learn to be a puppet and recite a silly rule. If growing up means it will be beneath my dignity to climb a tree, I won't grow up, never grow up, never gonna grow up. Not me.
Not I.
Not me. Thank you, Bonnie, but I don't need you correcting my grammar. Bonnie, everyone. I won't grow up. I don't want to wear a tie or a serious expression. in the middle of July. And if it means I must prepare to shoulder burdens with a worried air, I won't grow up, never grow up, never gonna grow up. So there, never gonna be a man. I won't like to see somebody try and make me anyone who wants to try and make me turn into a man. Catch me if you can, 'cause I won't grow up. Not a penny will I pinch. I refuse to grow a mustache or a fraction of an inch. 'Cause growing up's awfuler than all the awful things that ever been. I won't grow up, I won't grow up, never gonna grow up again.
Dogs know what snow's made for, C.S. Lewis said in our reading. And if you have a dog, like ours, who revels in a fresh snowfall, you understand what C.S. Lewis was talking about. Our poodle buries his nose in it and bites it and prances in the first few snowfalls of the year like a newborn foal. And he returns to the door, looking a little like this, looking years older with his muzzle and head covered in tiny ice crystals. It will lay to rest, I'm sure, any doubt that you've ever had that animals don't play. But what about you? When was the last time you played like that? Or played at all? Do you have to dig way back to Christmases past when you woke up in the morning and found presents under the tree? Well, when I first thought about this sermon, that's what came to mind. But as I started to write, I discovered that play is far, far more than just that. I learned if we incorporate play into our lives in a particular way, the benefits and joy will be palpable. Our everyday lives can be enhanced more than you might ever imagine. Some of you may have already played this morning and don't even know it. Did anyone do the New York Times crossword puzzle? Or any crossword puzzle? No? Okay, there's one. How about walk on a treadmill? You're going to do it later, I'm sure. Play is in the mindset of the beholder, you see. By definition, it is anything that we do that is not mandatory, is done in our spare time, and that we thoroughly enjoy. So even something like stamp collecting qualifies. Now, we all know that play is essential to a child's healthy development. But psychologists say that our brains are built for play our entire lives to support good mental and physical health. But not only do we need to play, we need to have a playful attitude as well. Now think about the dog in the snow again, or perhaps a child with a video game. They're not worrying about what they have to do next. They're only relishing that very thing that they're doing at the moment. And it feels like the most important thing in the world. And they are blissful. We all could be doing more of that. Someone who lived that philosophy his entire life was C.S. Lewis. Now, you probably know the name from the Chronicles of Narnia series from the 1950s. But I appreciate him for the many writings he did, and I especially admire him because he embraced a childlike attitude at every age of his life. In fact, he wrote that the sign of true maturity is a freedom to reconnect with the child in oneself. One need only read the dedication in his first novel, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, to understand that philosophy. He wrote it to his 13-year-old goddaughter, Lucy Barfield, and it reads in part, "I wrote this story for you, but when I began it, I had not realized that girls grow quicker than books. But someday you will be old enough to start reading fairy tales again. You can then take it down from some upper shelf, dust it, and then tell me what you think of it." Lucy was diagnosed with MS not long after, and she said, "What a wonderful oasis of pleasure I have in this pretty, terrible world being recognized as Lucy." Toward the end of her life in her 60s, when she became unable to move or to speak, just as Lewis predicted, Lucy enjoyed listening to her brother read all the Narnia books back to her. Now, although Lewis was primarily known as a children's author across the world, he was also a well-respected professor, tutor, and scholar. He also embraced a kinder Christianity and appeared on the cover of Time magazine when he wrote about Christianity. Now, this was all before he ever started writing children's stories. But his childlike attitude was intact. He wrote, "When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I was found doing so. Now that I'm 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up." I don't believe that he could have written what he did without that kind of playful attitude and his childlike imagination. And he wasn't whimsical because he never experienced hardships in his life. His mother died when he was quite young. His father was emotionally unavailable. He had fought in World War I and lost friends right beside him. But more often than not, Lewis reported that he had always been surprised by joy. And in fact, that was the name of his short autobiography. And he explained in it that joy is the response we might all choose to the challenges and the blessings the world offers to us. No matter what our age, choosing to experience the world with a childlike joy is not a waste of time or energy. And Lewis just encouraged us to be fearless about it. Certainly, none of us need to be guilty or feel ashamed for using the creative part of our brain. I think it's actually an investment in our health. Think of that the next time you do your jigsaw puzzle, which I know some of you do. But here's the thing, don't just do the jigsaw puzzle. Enjoy it with childlike wonder and avoid distractions. Even if you think of your Sudoku, your woodworking, or your collectibles only as a pastime, a diversion, or a hobby, it's okay to use the word play. It's okay to use the word play. And if you don't have something like that, maybe you can discover an activity that brings you that childlike enthusiasm. You're truly going to live longer, and you're going to have fun. Just remember to look for that feeling of total abandon. Of course, life isn't all fun and games, I realize that. So you do always have to balance your work and play and all the essentials that have to get done. And I know that you will all be shocked to hear that I have occasionally been criticized for playing too much, because I'm such a serious person. Jerry often says to me, "Why don't you stop playing with your rocks and get to work?" For me and others like me, play is part of the creative process. We need to walk away from intense projects once in a while so that we can relax physically and mentally. Don't roll your eyes. We usually get ideas and we can return to work refreshed. But once again, we might fear that we are indulging in some childish hobby because of what others say. If only we could let go of that, knowing we are doing something good for the mind, body, and soul. Seriously, I don't know if Jerry wants to see the Lynn that doesn't play with rocks. It's been a lifelong hobby for me, but sadly, most adults give up the very things that gave them the greatest happiness when they were children. Mythologist Joseph Campbell says we lose our way on our path to bliss, often out of fear of appearing gullible, childish, or naive. We allow society's limiting notions of success pressure us into unimaginative pursuits. So is there something that you loved doing but you stopped? Did your parents find it silly? Or maybe your friends? Or were you encouraged, like so many of us, to always have your feet planted firmly in reality? We had a running joke in our house when our son was growing up. You know, most parents will say when their kids are getting on the bus, have a good day, don't forget to, drink your milk. We'd say, follow your bliss, boy. We still laugh about that. He mentions it a lot. Nonetheless, following your bliss is serious business. It is never too late to find that childlike feeling again. And now it's going to look different for each and every one of us. Campbell described it like this: you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while, waiting for you. Wherever you are, if you are following your bliss, you are enjoying that refreshment. Now, to discern if you are doing it right, so to speak, Campbell says it requires a space for uninterrupted reflection and unrushed creative work. He also said that it is absolutely necessary for every person of every age to have what he called a bliss station. Now that could be a room, or it could be a certain hour of the day. But he said it's essential that you don't pay attention to the news of the day, you don't owe anything to anyone, and no one owes you anything. Your bliss station is a place or time of creative incubation, and something, he says, will eventually happen. So do you have one, a bliss station? Do you ever, maybe you'll wonder what one might look like. Well, picture an overstuffed chair in our living room. Jerry sits there with a laptop perched on top of a pile of books on a table next to him, so that one of our cats always has full access to his lap, and she does take advantage of it. There's always music in the background, could be Gregorian chants or Rolling Stones, and you'll find him pretty much any time of day, or of the week, or of the year. Sometimes he laughs aloud. I've heard that a lot lately as he's been writing the Christmas play. If it's half as funny as he thinks it is, we're really in for a treat on December 22nd. But I admit that I do admonish him for working too much and not having a hobby. I think he's going to need one when we retire. His response is almost always the same, but I'm having fun. So this is his bliss station. This is his play. This is Jerry having fun. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that I dislike writing sermons, but I also need distractions. Yesterday, I paused during sermon writing, and I put this together. Oh, it's a Lego. It's a Lego. No way, it is a Lego. And guess what? Can you believe the luck? Our son's partner loves Legos. So we're like this. So as I mentioned, some of us find what feeds our soul earlier than others. But luckily for millions of readers of C.S. Lewis, he discovered that childlike nature of play very early in his life. So he was born in 1898 in a suburb of Belfast. He was the second child of parents who weren't really churchgoers, but they loved libraries and had a huge one in their home. Now, Lewis must have inherited the distaste for church early on, because he once said, "Though I liked clergymen as I liked bears, I had as little wish to be in the church as I did in a zoo." But by all accounts, Lewis was not an ordinary child, and he was reading by the age of 3 and writing stories by the age of 5. And those stories were about fantasy worlds with mice and gigantic cats. He said he wrote the kinds of stories that he would want to read. But he was also influenced by the books that he and his brother loved by British Unitarian Beatrix Potter. Lewis and his older brother Warnie were inseparable. When it was warm enough, they did play outside with hoops and tops, and they went fishing, and they often encountered animals of all sorts. But Lewis remembers that more often than not, rainy, dreary days kept them indoors. So they retreated to their playroom in the attic and relied on their intellects to keep them entertained. And this is where the magic happened. They created wonderful fictional worlds populated with imaginative characters, and they kept telling those same stories to one another in letters well into their college years. Lewis later wrote, "I am the product of long corridors, empty sunlit rooms, upstairs indoor silences, distant noises of gurgling pipes, and the noise of wind under the tiles." So you can see how play entered into Lewis's life, both in his imagination, but also his surroundings. And he never gave it up, never. Dutch historian Johan Huizinga, a contemporary of Lewis, believed that even the earliest of humans participated in this kind of play. All forms of civilized life, such as law and order, commerce and profit, craft and art, poetry, wisdom, and science, were rooted in play, he said. And he developed a theory to characterize it. So in the simplest terms, he defined play as an activity in which one acts freely, is not reality, is not like ordinary life either in location or duration, creates order in the mind, and does not involve seeking material gain. Now, scientists had always believed that animals were only concerned with their never-ending struggle for survival. But with his new description of play, he demonstrated that almost all animals play and did so instinctually long before humans came along. Humans then also played instinctually, but also by mimicking animals. And why did we do it? Because it's a natural stress reliever for our bodies and our minds. And then as we evolved, we hung on to that and we incorporated play into our culture because we discovered that it does everything from strengthening social bonds to refining imaginative thinking to stretching the mind to be more creative and productive in science and the arts. But animals, recent studies confirm, indulge in needless activities for the pure fun of it. If you have ever seen a cat have a running fit up and down the furniture, you will believe that. But from chimps playing with dolls made of sticks, fish jumping for absolutely no reason, and ravens that repeatedly slide up and down icy roofs, animals have been found to have many playful pursuits. Bear cubs are thought to be the most playful animals on earth. Now, it is clear that some activities of animals naturally develop their skills that they're going to need later on for survival. So, of course, play takes on many forms. But from dogs playing in the snow, ants engaging in pretend battles, to being the right sort of chap that enjoys any and all weather, it's all play. So now that you know a little bit more about Lewis's background, you might think that his books were based on the stories from his childhood, or perhaps about children he knew. Neither was true. It was his childlike attitude and sense of play that was responsible. He began writing the Chronicles when he was middle-aged, and he was a bachelor. And he knew few children, and he admitted to knowing even less about children's literature. He says he was only familiar with Beatrix Potter from his youth, The Wind in the Willows, which he had not read until he was in his 20s, and the writings of his very good friend J.R.R. Tolkien. Before his children's books, Lewis had only published scholarly works. Many of them were on his conversion from atheism to Christianity in his 30s. So it was truly his philosophy of remaining childlike that helped him write the beloved series that endeared him to so many millions of strangers. Now, luckily, Lewis had always been surrounded by teachers and friends who set a good example for him. Once he learned to rejoice in life itself, no matter the situation, he was forever a child at play. To him, everything at every moment was magnificent. It only made him lead a happy life, but a successful one at that. As one of his friends commented, the key to his success was that his whole life was motivated and oriented by a uniquely persisting child sense of glory and nightmare. Yet he remained a pliable enough adult and to be vulnerable that he was able to feel it all with a man's strength. Other friends said of him that he was always open to delight, had a willingness to be enchanted, loved laughter, and generally believed that the world was good. I wouldn't mind that being my epitaph. Ironically, Lewis never really made a conscious choice to live that way. He simply found joy everywhere. He had found his bliss. but it led one of his friends to ponder why we all weren't living like Lewis. Why do we abandon those things that give us childlike pleasure and keep us vital and healthy adults, even though we know it's going to be good for us? Despite the research which shows that playful people are more likely to succeed in their chosen professions, that they live longer, that embracing some childlike habits throughout our life can make us smarter, more resilient, better at problem solving, and even better at making friends. Yet we tend not to. We know Joseph Campbell would tell us we resist out of fear and peer pressure. Certain religious folks might tell us that we don't do it because happiness like that is reserved for heaven. But Lewis knew better. He said that when we lose our childlikeness, we lose our humanity. He said life was about having a vivid imagination and being willing to be fooled and delighted. It's actually a pretty simple formula when you get down to it. Whatever you can find that gives you the enchanting power of play is the correct path, and it can be as important as eating right. Children naturally lose themselves in play, just like dogs. We all just need to relearn that and practice it as adults and do it a lot more often. Or simply remember this: it is always okay to play.
You can stand if you want to. Totally optional.
So, we're definitely into the Christmas holiday season, sometimes called a season of giving. There was Thanksgiving, then Black Friday, then Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday. I skipped. There was First Advent, Sunday, then there was Cyber Monday, and then Giving Tuesday. Plus, I just learned this past week that Thursday was International Volunteer Day. And there's probably some others in there. This past week was NPR Michigan Radio's end of the year fundraising drive. And now we have our weekly time for generosity, a time when we stop and think about what we can do to support the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. We often mention that we appreciate your time, talent, and treasure. This is so true. Without those donations, we could not exist. Volunteers are a vital part of our church operations, which falls under the category of time and talent. On Sunday, just look around and you'll see our greeters, ushers, sound and video people, safety, worship associates, plus several other less visible jobs. These people are all volunteers who are willing to take on a specific task, usually once a month. Many people even do different tasks on different Sundays. There are also volunteers who help maintain our building and grounds. If you don't already, I would encourage you to volunteer to do something. For example, as I understand, they're still seeking someone to take responsibility once a month for the after-service coffee hour. But yes, as I'm sure you know, we also need monetary donations. Staff, utilities, supplies, repairs and maintenance, etc., are all necessary expenses. So, if you can, place any financial offering in the basket at the back of the church as you leave, or by making an online gift at uuflint.org. Gifts of all kinds are greatly accepted and appreciated. Thank you.
Shortly after twilight, a 3.5-year-old tried to gain the attention of his parents to look at a star in the sky. And they, of course, were busy with other preoccupations. Yes, yes, we see the star. Now don't bother us. On hearing this, the child launched through the porch door, fixed a fiery gaze at them, and said, "You be glad at that star." Yes, let us be glad at them all, and the children who help us see them.
And let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts till we are together again.
May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others that others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars. May you climb on every rung. May you climb, and may you be forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you be forever young. May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth and see the light surrounding you. May you always be courageous. May you all be upright and be strong. May you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young. May your hands always be busy, may your feet always be swift, may you have a strong foundation when the wings of change shift. May your heart always be joyful, may your song always be sung, and may you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young.